It's kind of crazy because I never agree with Judd Apatow on pretty much anything. His comedy is not really it's just not funny to me. Yeah, I just don't. But I agree with him on this. Hey everybody, what's up? Michael Stevenson here. Welcome to my channel. You are currently watching my art and entertainment industry series on my channel where I talk about the entertainment industry, specifically as it relates to film and television. I would ask that if this is your first time here, that you please go back and watch some of the previous videos. This is part of the Hollywood is Broken series, and all of my videos are essentially in sequential order because I'm trying to build up a foundation or a lingo or a particular language for the channel so that we have a shorthand so that you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about in later videos, and I don't have to re-explain a concept. I can just say the words lost effect and you immediately get exactly what I'm talking about. So I would ask that you please go back and watch those videos. With that being said, this is yet again another video about something that really kind of has ground my gears into just nothingness. This is yet another video on award shows and the award season. Last year, when I was thinking about starting the channel, and I tried to start it up last year, but then I got too busy, I did release a video. It was like an hour-long video on award shows and award season. I don't think I actually put it as part of the Hollywood is Broken playlist, but I'm sure you can find it on my channel. I don't have that many videos yet, so you can definitely find it there. And in that video, I just talked about whether award shows are still useful, whether they're still important, whether anybody even still cares about them, etc., etc. My conclusion then is the same as it is now, is that it's both a yes and a no. Two things, of course, can exist at once. Of course, awards and award shows are still important, especially to the people within the industry. And yes, to some extent, they also are still important to us as the fans. That's why we make a big stink about when people get snubbed or why Marvel hasn't won an Oscar, etc., etc. So yes, there's a duality there, that they are both important and yet not important. I also wanted to make this video mainly because when this particular argument came out couple months back, I was still too busy with the whole trying to rush videos out to get to my Dune Part 2 will probably suck video. So I kind of missed, I guess, the big hoopla around it at that point. But I knew that I definitely wanted to talk about it because this is one thing that I didn't see in almost any of the arguments that I saw online about it. And there were tons of writers arguing about this, just as there were tons of just regular fans arguing about this. And that is the categorization of Barbie as a best adapted screenplay as opposed to a best original screenplay. Now, this is to speak nothing about the snubs of, was it Best Actress for Margot Robbie or Best Director for Greta Gerwig? Listen, I can make a whole nother video on that and, call out all sorts of things, whether it's sexism or just how the Academy routinely seems to get things wrong, etc., etc. I'm just not even going to go there at this point because it's just like, the Academy, as someone who has always wanted to be in the industry and am sort of kind of in the industry, I'm on the fringes. Again, it's like I haven't had that big break to where I just need one really good story and suddenly it's like, oh my God, he's this, he's that, blah, 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 yada, 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 and my name is everywhere. But as someone who's always wanted to be in this since I was 4 years old, and yes, everybody, it does not matter. I don't care what they might say. out in the public or in news articles, whatever. Everybody who works in the industry, yes, they definitely want to win big awards. Like, it's not why we do it, but it is one of those things that is like, yeah, it's there. We would love that. We would love that honor. And to a bigger extent or a greater extent, everybody on the planet loves to be appreciated. I don't care what your job is. If you're if the people around you decided, yeah, you know what? We're going to honor you. We think that you've done a great job at whatever it is you're doing. We want to congratulate you. We want to throw you a party. It's funny because my mother actually, she just got a promotion. With the promotion, though, some of her bosses and some of her colleagues, for the first time that she's been with the company, and she's been with the company for almost 25 years, the company that she works with now, for like the first time, at least with this company, it felt like they were truly acknowledging how important she was to the team and, you know, how good she was at her job, et cetera, et cetera. So those kinds of acknowledgments, whether they come through awards, shows, or whatever industry you're in, yes, they are important. They build up something within us. That whole good job, fella, that pat on the back that we get, we can't say that it's not important. And yes, you can say that, oh, it's a bunch of spoiled, rich Hollywood elite people who they have the different politics than you do, or you know, they just want to congratulate themselves to make themselves feel better. Everybody does that. They're still human, right? They're still human. So that whole idea of, oh, we should hate them or whatever, I never got into that. Never got into it. I never thought that award shows should be roasts or anything. I know I'm going off on a tangent and talking about award shows in general, but I promise you I am going to get to the topic at hand. But yeah, like I said, I never thought that award shows should necessarily be roasts, and I don't know. We're going to talk about that a little bit more when we actually get into April, because I have like a comedy week sort of planned where I talk about modern day comedy and where comedy is right now. But yeah, I never thought that it should be that. Yes, some of them are rich, but y'all remember, everybody who is at the Oscars or who makes it there, they're not always rich. Does anybody know how much money Lily Gladstone is making? Has she made bank? Can anybody name another movie that or TV show that she's ever even been in? Like, yes, I know Leo got snubbed. He wasn't nominated, I don't think, but she's nominated for Best Actress. And I think she's like one of the first, if not the first, Native American woman. I doubt that she goes home to her $5 million mansion, right? Same thing went for that black guy who was nominated for, he was in the movie Captain Phillips across from Tom Hanks. Again, my point is that not every nominee, whether they are an actor or an actress or writer or a director or whatever they are, not every nominee is big time rich and big time famous and some spoiled Hollywood elite. So now we get to the topic at hand, the topic of Barbie. So I don't know when this occurred, really. I want to say it maybe was when the Oscars nominations were announced. But as an aside, this is just how I understand it. This is how it was explained to me, but I could be wrong. So going backwards, obviously you had the winner of the Oscar on Oscar night. Then you have the nominees. The nominees are announced a couple months before the Oscars. But then, and again, this is just how I understand it, apparently there's a short list that it's like a list of, I don't know, like 20 or 30, not even that many. There's a list of films that are, I guess, within each category that are like, okay, these are the films that we're choosing from as nominees for an Oscar. So this is the list from which your nominees will come. Maybe that's true. I'm not sure if it is or not, but that is never actually announced. You just get the nominees and the winner, of course. But in any case, at some point in this process, Judd Apatow, he's famous director and writer of comedies like Knocked Up, Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He's a heavyweight producer. He's been working in Hollywood for a very long time now, like 25, 30 years even. He sort of set the internet ablaze, at least within writer circles and within Barbie fan circles, because he made a stink about the fact that the Academy wanted to, and ultimately did, place Barbie in the best adapted screenplay category rather than the best original screenplay. He himself, of course, is a writer. I don't think that he was really coming from it from the perspective that some people took it. Essentially, a lot of people thought that he was saying that it was a complete and utter disgrace, or at the very least, in some ways, a diss, that Barbie was placed in Best Adapted rather than Best Original. Other WGA members, they came out later and they tried to say, well, now, wait a minute, hold on. According to the rules, at least the WGA rules, and the Academy, they have their own rules, but they don't post them online or anything like that. At least according to the rules, they were right to say that Barbie was an adapted screenplay. And so I was sitting there and I was like, no, wait a minute, hold on. Something is not sitting right with me. And I found out what it was. And this is the whole reason why I am making this video. Because as it turns out, both of them, both Judd Apatow and the detractors, all the other writers, both of them are both right and wrong at the same time. So first off, let's go back to what Judd Apatow was saying. He was saying that because Barbie was based off of a toy, and it hadn't had a book or like a novel or a movie, something like that before that came along, that it should have been considered an original screenplay. The writers who came out and said, wait a minute, hold on, you're wrong. They were saying that because Barbie is based off of a thing that is already known, it's based off of a product that everybody knows, going in to any sort of pitch meeting, number one, you could really only pitch it to the people who owned Barbie, which I believe is Mattel. So if Mattel said, yeah, we don't want you making a movie about our toy Barbie, then that was it. But they were saying that, look, because it existed originally, even if it doesn't have a narrative form attached to it, or it doesn't have a story pre-attached to it, you are still adapting it because it is something that already exists. And then, of course, they went on to defend the writing in and of itself. I'll get to that part later because I agree with them on that. First off, Judd Apatow was right, and they are technically wrong on this. And the reason why is because of historical precedent. Well, first off, let me say this. I haven't watched the Oscars since at least 2017. That whole La La Land Moonlight fiasco, that sort of made me kind of want to give up on watching the Oscars. Almost in protest, I just couldn't stand it anymore. The fact that was such a fiasco, and to me, La La Land should have won. While I liked Moonlight, did I think that it should have won for Best Picture? God no. God no. Similarly, while I do think that 12 Years a Slave was a good film, it also ticked me off that there were a lot of Oscar voters who came out after the Oscars aired, and they said, anonymously of course, but they told to some of the biggest Hollywood publications, The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, they told them that, yeah, we voted for the movie to win, without seeing the movie. We didn't even watch the movie. We just voted for it because we knew it was an important movie. In my opinion, that shows more and puts more of an onus on the voters and how illogical or incredibly biased they are. It almost felt like, and this has happened multiple times throughout history, it felt essentially like a shut up vote. Like, okay, we gave you your little win. Now shut up and go somewhere. You can be in any kind of group and have that sort of thing. So, say that Captain Marvel won, okay? Captain Marvel starring Brie Larson. Say that won the Oscar for Best Picture. It was an okay movie, and if people came out and said, yeah, well, we voted for it because, comic book fans really just want a comic book movie to win for Best Picture, that would make you feel some kind of way. That would make you feel a lot of ways. So both of those things really kind of ticked me off. So I haven't actually watched the Oscars in years, but I still keep up with at least most of the winners and most of the nominees. So the reason why, when I heard people saying that Barbie actually was in the right category, why alarm bells went off is because of a precedent that the Oscars themselves or itself set. And that precedent was set in 2019. In 2019, one of the movies that was basically sweeping the Oscars was that of the movie The Green Book. For those of you who don't know, The Green Book won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. Here's the problem. The Green Book was based on an actual book. As you can see, there is the picture for it. This is the historical context. So The Green Book was actually based on the Negro's Guide, or the Negro's Motorist Guide, or The Green Book. This was an actual product, and for those of you who don't know, who are international or who are just from a terrible education system here in U.S., there was a lot of racism in the U.S. The U.S. is a racist country. It is a very racist country. We always have been a racist country. So back in the day, during the Jim Crow era, as Black people, or really as almost any minority with skin darker than darker than pretty much an olive hue, there were places that we could and could not go. We couldn't eat at some places. We couldn't stay at some places, like lodgings, hotels, motels, etc., etc. We also we could go to some towns, but it was advised not to go to certain towns. We had things called sundown towns. A sundown town basically was a town that when the sun went down, basically anything could happen to a Black person if they were caught being outside, whether they were driving in their car or walking the streets downtown from one bar to another or back to their hotel, whatever. You didn't want to be caught outside, away from your home, or outside of your hotel or motel or wherever you were, if you were a Black person in a sundown town, because some bad stuff could happen to you. You could just end up disappeared and nobody would ever see or hear from you again. This was a fact within America. So in order to make sure that Black people and other minorities that were of a certain hue could stay safe when they traveled, especially in the South. The South was incredibly racist traveling through Jim Crow. The Green Book, the Negro Motorist Guide, or Green Book, was essentially a book that listed tons of different places, whether they were restaurants, hotels, motels, even gas stations, even whole towns, places which were either safe or unsafe for Black people to go at that time, so that the Black people would be able to remain safe during their travels across the U.S. And therein lies the rub. Yes, that historical context somewhat matters, but no, you don't really need to know about racism and all that stuff. All you need to know is that the movie The Green Book was based on an actual Green Book. Or in other words, that the Green Book, the whole thing that gives the movie its title, was a real, legitimate product. This essentially nullifies and eliminates almost every single argument that I've seen talking about Barbie and how it was put into the correct category. Never mind the fact that in almost every other instance in which these movies were submitted for categorization by various award shows and awarding bodies, never mind the fact that Barbie was counted as original in almost every other one, every other major one. The WGA, the Writers Guild Awards, BAFTA, I believe, counted it as a original screenplay as well. The fact that the Oscars decided to list The Green Book as original, but Barbie as adapted, is completely ridiculous. Because let's look at some of the arguments that were made. Both of them are products that exist within this world. So they're not fictionalized products. Number two, neither of them actually had narratives that were attached to them previously. There was no narrative for Barbie that said, oh yeah, she went this way and she went that way. Yes, there were marketing bullet points of like, oh, this is her dream house, this is that. But there are also marketing bullet points for The Green Book as well. Number three, neither one of them are tied specifically to a specific event, a specific person, or a specific place. So this is different than Maestro. I think Maestro was also nominated this year for Best Original Screenplay, even though it tells a biographical story of Bernstein. Dang it, I forget his first name. I didn't see it because it was on Netflix, but that doesn't matter. They are based on products. Both of these things were things that could be bought and or could be passed down, given away. Also, there is, and I've read the WGA rules. From what I can remember, it's been, like a year or so since I last read them. I have to read them again just to see if anything has changed since the strike. There is, from what I can remember, no specific wording in there about whether something has to be copyrighted or trademarked. How is the Green Book, the Negro Motorist Guide, or the Green Book, different from Barbie? In truth, there is no difference. There is no difference. There is no difference. They're both products. They didn't have a narrative attached to them already. Why then, and a narrative was built around them and the utilization of the product? Both of them even use the product's name in the title of the film. This is why I say that, yes, there were a whole lot of writers, WGA certified writers, who came out and tried to defend and say, well, actually, the rules state this, that, and the third, and since it's based on a real product and Barbie, blah, 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 they are wrong. In this case, either they are wrong or the Academy is. Now, of course, we know in reality, the Academy is wrong here. Basically, they're just applying rules kind of willy-nilly, not really. There's no one specific flat way in which they are applying these rules, and there kind of have never been. And the problem with the Academy recently is that this is only getting worse, because things like Daniel Kaluuya winning Best Supporting Actor and Lakeith Stanfield also being nominated for Best Supporting Actor. It's just like, what? No, one of them should have won, or should have at least been nominated for Best actor, not best supporting. Honestly, what it does feel like, and I know a lot of you are going to groan and going to roll your eyes or whatever when I say this, but there are a few reasons as to why this foolishness has gone on. Number one, get ready to groan and roll your eyes. There could be some racism / sexism still going on, which it probably is. I'm not going to lie about it. But don't turn the channel off yet. That is not the reason that is not the reason that I'm going with for this one. It's not. My reasoning behind this, the reason why I think they did this is because I think that the Academy just does not like honoring certain people at certain times. I just don't think that. I think that's the other reason. And sometimes it is against specific people. Sometimes I think it is actually against full-on studios. Warner Brothers itself pushed to have Barbie in the original screenplay category. I feel in many ways, like for the last decade, the Academy has been picking and choosing nominees and maybe to some extent winners based around the idea of the studio and or the production company behind some of these films. I think almost 100% that's one of the reasons why Coda won, because they were like, okay, this year we just want to honor Apple TV or, whatever streamer that was on, Apple Plus, whatever it was on. Like, we just want to honor them. So, they've been doing some okay work. They've employed quite a few actors and actresses. No bad publicity to make Hollywood look stupid or whatever. Yeah, let's honor them. Let's give them something. I don't know. It's just a weird theory that I have. Going back to Judd Apatow and the writers, they were also both right and wrong in defending the category, in saying how tough or how difficult it is for the adapted screenplay to be, how tough of a category it is. Okay, so while I think that it is a slight to Warner Brothers that they just didn't get their way to put it into the original screenplay category, it is not in any way a slight against Greta Gerwig and I think Noah Baumbach. It is not a lesser award than the original screenplay. And to be honest with you, if we're looking at it as someone who has written a lot of novels and stuff, but who's also written screenplays and tried to adapt stuff, adapting a screenplay or writing an adapted screenplay is actually harder to do than to write an original screenplay. And the reasons why are many. For starters, with an original screenplay, really the only thing that you're worried about, or that you should be worried about, is fitting the entire story into the framing that you have, like fitting it into less than 120 pages, really less than 110 pages. You want to have your original screenplay be fairly short, but not overly short to where it's not even a full movie length. But that's about it for an original screenplay. Yes, you can make it pop, make sure that it's got good characters, but all of those things are things that any screenplay or screenwriter should worry about. When you're adapting a screenplay, you have to worry about pretty much everything, because yes, the characters are already there for you, as is the world. But the problem is that for every cut that you make in an adapted screenplay, and this is before the director even gets his or her hands on it, and they have to start chopping scenes and stuff in the editing bay along with the editor. Before you even give it to them, you as the writer have to make various cuts and make various decisions about what should be in the movie. And that is hard. Like, that's super difficult. If you are just writing your own original idea, you could probably take one scene and you're like, man, this whole scene, it lasts for like 5 or 6 pages. It's a super long scene. yes, it feels important, but you could probably chop that scene and whatever dialogue that happened, unless it's actions that are happening, whatever sort of important dialogue happened in that scene, you could probably slice that into half, maybe even into a third, and put some of that into another scene and just go about with your day. No one would ever know that you chopped a full scene. Every chop that you make in an adapted screenplay, there's something. There is something. Basically, you're chopping off the arm or gouging out the eye of a fan in a particular subset of the fandom for that thing. With every single word that you write, with every single scene that you construct, you essentially are deciding for the fans, for the fandom that already exists, what should and shouldn't be important, what is and isn't going to be something that they should focus on. So then going back finally to the they were probably both right and probably both wrong thing, Judd Apatow was right that it should have been considered an original screenplay. But here's where he also probably was wrong, and the writers were correct. Barbie, just like pretty much almost every other toy out there, there probably exists some of those like super cheaply made cartoon, direct to home video, direct to DVD, or video on demand, whatever it is. There probably exists some cheap knockoffs, not knockoffs, but some cheap licensed cartoons of it, similar to My Little Pony or the Bratz. They'll release these terrible videos, and they'll be like 30 minutes or something, where the characters will do something, they'll go on some big amazing adventure, whatever. I'm sure that Barbie probably does have something like that, and therein would lie the rub, because if those exist, then technically they are right that yes, Barbie is adapted, even if they don't adapt any of those storylines. They would then have a legitimate argument to say that it was adapted. But it technically was always adapted to begin with, because it was adapted from a toy that already exists in life. So overall, was everybody correct? Yes, and they were also wrong. The only person who was double wrong was the Academy. I will leave that with you guys. Y'all can argue over it again if you want to. I don't have a sign off.